Hey everybody, Mr. Noble here. I am going to go over briefly the poetry analysis protocol known as Tp-Castt. This is an acronym meant to help you as you are analyzing poetry. The idea being that at some point you're going to be looking at a poem and you're going to have no idea what to do, where to start, what to talk about, what's going on. And then the Tp-Castt protocol should help you come up with something to talk about. So to get started, we have already learned the vocab inside of the protocol, but now we're going to put it into practice. You should probably write some notes for this, as you are going to turn in your notes at the end of assignment number 1. You can type them up, you can write them down, doesn't matter, but I would keep this with all of your AP Literature notes. And then please know that we will practice this process several times over the next few weeks, and several other times throughout the year as we look at poetry. So the T is pretty straightforward. Analyze the title first. So what do you predict this poem will be about based on the title? And I always try to write down a little bit of a prediction so I can remember when I get back to the end of this protocol what it was that I was thinking before I started reading it. The P is for paraphrase. Paraphrasing is putting something in your own words. After you read the poem, you should rewrite the poem in your own words so that you can analyze what's going on without getting stuck on the language that the original poet used. This may be 3 sentences or a page. It depends on the poem. It doesn't always need to be the same length, but the idea is you're getting all of the ideas out of the poem and you're putting them into your own words so you can access them a little easier. The C is for connotation, which is something we talked a lot about these last few weeks. Connotation is when you analyze the figures of speech and sound effects of the poem. So things like rhyme, personification, simile, metaphor, hyperbole. These are all things that help us read between the lines and get a better idea of what the poet was trying to say. We should have most of these words under our belts. There's going to be a few new ones that pop up in the poetry unit. But as we go through, start thinking about how does the stuff we have already talked about apply to what we are doing here. And then I would argue that these elements, like all the others, add to the overall meaning, the gist. What is it we are supposed to get out of the poem? The A is for attitude, and we would call that, in short story analysis, tone. It's the author's attitude towards the subject. So is the author upset, happy, angry, frightened, annoyed? So how do they feel about what's going on, and what words do you see in there that kind of help you pick up on that? S is for shift. If there is a change in time, tone, speaker, then this should always be noted, as this will affect the meaning. So many poems will be broken up into stanzas, and there is some sort of shift between one part of the poem, one set of stanzas, and the next. So always be looking for, where do things change? And then T is for title. Again, at this time, you should reconsider the title. So go back. What did you guess this poem was going to be about? What were your predictions? Were you right? Were you incorrect? And then what other meanings might the title have in light of your analysis, now that we've run all the way through this protocol? And then the next one, the big one, the ultimate reason that we're looking at this poem, T is for theme. So as you already know, theme is the general insight into life conveyed by the author. It's the moral, it's the message. What does this poet want us to get from this work? And then the hard part, how do you apply it to the world outside of the poem? It does not make a judgment necessarily. So don't do drugs is not a theme. It merely states something that is true to life and the human condition. And how do you find the theme, right? That's the big question. So you look at all of the parts of Tp-Castt. You look at the language, you look at the author's perspective, you reflect on what you saw, and then you think about what insights are these working together to convey. And then what is the poet ultimately trying to say about life in general, life outside of the poem? So the idea is when you are reading a poem, you run through Tp-Castt in some way in your head. Think about the title, think about a paraphrase. You may or may not write it all the way down. And then you run all the way through all of this. And then by the end, you should have an idea, hopefully, about what the theme is and then what the poem was actually about. And then in your analysis, I would try to latch on to one or two of these things here as you build your case, as you respond to the prompt, as you write the essay, whatever it may be. I hope as we go forward this year that this helps you look at poetry analysis.